Good morning, Softball America. Let's just pretend there's coffee in here. It's empty. Happy Mayhem. I'm Gray Robertson. That is Tara Henry. Hello, my friend. Happy postseason to you.
Hi, good morning. Happy postseason. My coffee's actually over on the other table, but I do have a coffee. Good morning, everybody. What an exciting morning, and got a lot to get through, and just so happy to be here. We just had some big news.
Oh, would you like to share, Tara?
Well, just before we went on, literally 2 minutes ago, we hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. We're so thankful for you all, first and foremost, and gosh, what a ride it's been thus far. So can't wait to get into it. And good morning.
Hello. And we've got so much that we're going to cover. We're going to look at this past weekend, a couple things. We're going to do a conference tournament preview. We're going to look at the main five and also, of course, the American, one of the ones that Tara is, I think, most intrigued by. We will do a top 25 Q&A. Florida fans, ask your questions. I'd love to answer them, please. Also, we're going to do a little bracketology comparison. So Brady Vernon, the resident full bracketologist for Softball America, posted his updated one this morning. It is on the site right now. I do my 16 for out of the box. We're going to do a little comparison. Tara's going to ask some questions. We'll walk through how Brady looks at it with his full bracket and how I've charted all the numbers. And there are some similarities, a few differences, but I think it kind of shows probably at worst kind of the range for a lot of teams. So I think that'll be an interesting conversation. But first and foremost, we have to start with the biggest story in the sport, where Tara was last week. Bedlam. Tara, you were at Love's Field. Alex Storako gave you the superstar treatment, and you watched a wild series. Oklahoma State went in and took 2 out of 3. First time the Cowgirls have won a series against the Sooners in a very, 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 very long time. And it was an impressive showcase for Oklahoma State. And then Oklahoma did kind of Oklahoma things game 3. So it was just overall a lot of good softball, Tara. And I'm sure you've got plenty to say about your trip out to Norman.
Well, yes, it was great softball. And probably the biggest takeaway, Gray, I would say, was that Oklahoma State, there was no fear walking into that Love's Field. And let me tell you, once you do walk into Love's Field, it is grandiose. Has a minor league ballpark feel to it. You know, 5,000 fans just screaming. And Oklahoma State, even from day one, there was no fear in the Cowgirls' eyes. And, we talked about this on another show, Gray. I think that first inning on Friday was a pivotal moment after Agog had walked a handful of batters, that Oklahoma didn't score in that first inning. And I think that really set the tone. And from that point on, it was really Cowgirls softball for game 1 and 2. But quite arguably, my favorite part of the weekend, Fang Nai, one of the fans of the podcast, was able to meet him and get an incredible tour of just where the National Weather Service is out of. And Fang was so generous to give me a tour during the rain delay and was able to see how actually storms are tracked and how they're reading them in radar, various different radar components of it. So Fang, big shout out to Fang, and was incredible to just be able to get that tour. It was like basically a private tour. No one is in there. And just right down the street from Love. So I encourage you all to head on down there and get a tour. But yes, Fang Nai, appreciate you.
I'm jealous for multiple reasons. National weather. I mean, that's cool. I saw the video that you posted. The view is amazing. Also during a weather delay, so plenty to actually look at, which is nice. And also getting to meet Fang Nai. Fang, I'm jealous, and I hope to meet you one day as well. By the way, obviously, the chat is open. So if you've got anything to say, please go forth and shout it out, and we'll flash it on the screen. A couple others. Fang says, congratulations on 1K subscriptions. Thank you. Brandon, it's been a minute since we've heard from our pal Brandon, says congratulations, but good to have you back, Brandon. We've got a college sports advocate saying good morning, and Also, shouting out Fang. Fang is awesome. Duh. So, yeah, that
Hey, Sherry.
over.
Yeah, I love it.
So, another Bedlam question that I had, on Saturday, the Alabama team comes over. We do the graduation stuff. Team leaves, and a couple of us, myself, Tom, Sherry, my family, a couple other folks who were in separate cars, stayed to watch the Kentucky Derby. And while they are loading the paddock on Saturday, we look to our left, and it's game 2 of Oklahoma State. We've got it on the other TV, and that just so happened to be the moment when the Cowgirls were electrifying everybody with their power strokes. And I think the Oklahoma State offense really made a statement here this weekend, because in the series win over Texas, the big story coming out of it was Lexi Kilfoyle. She shut down the Texas Bats, and deservedly so. That was the story. But I left this weekend really impressed by the Oklahoma State offense overall and how they were able to get to pretty much, outside of Carly Keeney, every pitcher in the OU staff that appeared in the circle.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, Gray. And on Friday, it was Carly Godwin, the rookie, getting it done for Oklahoma State. But on Saturday, it it was just literally home run after home run after home run. And when all your runs are scored by way of the long ball, Caroline Wong and Claire Tim, Michaela Wark, and Julian Pollard. I mean, it was literally the ball was flying out of the yard. And I can't say enough about Vanessa Shippey Fletcher and what she's done with this offense. Obviously, coming in late in the fall and really changing that mentality. And again, I agree with you, Gray. I think that Cowgirls offense paired with that pitching staff and an Ivy Rosenberry that's not 100%, and Alexi Kilfoyle that throws a really hard down ball, can mix speeds, and really keep the ball in the yard. The Cowgirls are a tough matchup, and again have all the makings to make a pretty solid run to the Women's College World Series.
Anything else you want to say about Bedlam before we put a button on that and move on?
I think Sunday was really important for the Sooners. I think in general, the collective uh, kind of feeling in the stadium was like, what is going to happen on Sunday? And for those seniors to come through, to see TRE Jennings really step up on defense at the plate. And then the freshmen, the future is so bright. At Oklahoma and Ella Parker and Cassidy Pickering. I think it was really important to see that and to see Carly Keeney in the circle for her to really step up and get it done. I know Coach Gasso at a post game interview and was really impressed with Carly Keeney, and she's going to be someone they turn to heading into the postseason.
I'll offer one more thought in regards to Ivy. You know how proud I am of all my summer leaguers all the time, and Ivy is one of those who was with me in Clarksville this past summer, and it's just so cool watching her thrive, not only all this year, but to pitch as well as she did against one of the best, if not the best, offenses in America. It just, I loved it. So props to Ivy, props for being a warrior. I'm not surprised that she's a fighter after getting to know her this summer, and I know that she's going to continue to have a great year and continue to be that fighter and that gritty player that we saw in Norman. This is a good one from Joy on Twitter, or X, sorry. Also, shout out to the Cowgirl coaching staff. In my opinion, they prepared their offense for what they were going to see in the circle. And a couple people talked about, Maxwell struggled in relief. Kirsten Deal kind of got touched up a little bit. They were ready for a lot of the different looks the Cowgirls were that they saw.
I agree, and I agree with you, Joy. I do think that offense was ready and prepared. They looked prepared in the box and were unfazed. And, hitting is difficult. We say that all the time. It's not really, it's not an easy thing, but when you have data and you have a plan and you stick to your plan and you believe in your plan, and that's what I think Vanessa Shippey Fletcher brings to that squad. When you believe in what you're doing, it frees you up as a hitter. And the Oklahoma State Cowgirls, they just look really free at the plate and able to kind of do what they've been training their whole lives to do, and that's just to simply get on the box and take their hack. So I agree with you, Joy. I agree with you, Gray. An incredible performance from the offense this past weekend.
All right, let's go to what I felt like was the next biggest story of the weekend, which was Florida sweeping Texas A&M to conclude a 4-0 week that also involved the craziest, possibly dumbest game of the year, the 15-13 extra inning win over Florida State. Just what the heck was that? That was an absurd plot twist left and right. But the Gators leave the week 4-0 with 4 ranked wins. And our buddy Tim Walton, for all the Florida people out there in the comments who say Softball America hates Florida, I would like to pinpoint you to Walton's World, a podcast hosted by Florida head coach Tim Walton, part of the Softball America podcast network. And our pal Coach Walton has, I think, got Florida maybe playing the best softball that they've played all year and the most consistent softball that they've played all year. As long as Rothrock can stay fresh, can continue to not make mistakes over the white like she kind of was against Florida State, but really didn't against Texas A&M, then the Gators are very much a World Series contender. And I'm going to be honest, they've got the offense that can mash their way to a national title if the pitching holds up.
I agree with you, Gray, and I've been able to watch the Gators at various, ballparks across the country this year, and I agree. This past weekend just was to dominate, really. I know it was, what did you use the word to describe the Florida State game? The silliest? No,
I use
dumbest?
silliest, dumbest. Look,
Okay.
softball is amazing, but it can sometimes be dumb.
But the thing about the Gators is they're just finding ways to win, and it's not gonna always be pretty. It's not gonna always be the perfect swing. You're not gonna always, hit the home run. I mean, although Jocelyn Erickson tends to always hit the home run, she's good at that. But Corby Otis and Skylar Wallace and Kendra Falby and that pitching staff, I really have been impressed with the rookies in the circle. And again, when a team can find different ways to win, that's a scary combination for any opponent. And they've done it time and time again all season long.
I'll flash this question from Phil. What's wrong with Florida State softball? This was a tough week. This was a tough week for the Noles, losing the series to Syracuse, giving up 15 runs at home to Florida. Just kind of feels to me like the pitching staff has reverted back a little bit to what we saw early in the year, and not having McKenna Reed be able to throw very much is a big miss. And that we just haven't seen her in a while. She's missed some time, and Florida State is a less good team when one of their better pitchers isn't able to throw. I know that's a shocking development. When a good pitcher is out, the team might get a little worse, but this has just not been the best softball that Florida State has played. And unfortunately, it has come at the worst possible time.
Yeah, I agree with you, Gray. I mean, we saw, Florida State struggles in the beginning of the season, but you got to remember, there's always ebbs and flows to a season, and figuring out that pitching staff, and still got so many weapons. There's just so many weapons. I'm not wanting to draw Florida State in a regional if I'm an opposing team either, but obviously there's been some hiccups this season long, but I'm confident that we'll see them fighting. It's just it is odd to see them drop that last series, but I think this ACC tournament will get a taste of what the Seminoles are made of heading into postseason play.
Shout out to our friend Fang Nai, who's clearly a listener to the Out of the Box podcast. What does Syracuse do? They ruin seasons. And they ruined Virginia Tech's. They ruined Florida State's. Last year, they kept Virginia out of the NCAA tournament. What does Syracuse do? They ruin seasons. Shout out to the Orange for really, really playing well. And that's, look, to win series against Virginia Tech and Florida State in just a couple weeks span is a really, really impressive feat. And I think a sign that the Syracuse program is one that, frankly, we don't talk about very much, but maybe we will have to start talking about them a little bit more in the coming years.
Yeah, I mean, we got to get Sydney on here to talk about Syracuse as well. But yes, Lindsay Hendricks, what she's been able to do in the circle. And I think, again, when we get into our conference previews, that's a team I have circled. Actually, that we've already kind of started talking about, and that's going to be an important series for them.
A little tease from Tara Henry. We will go through all the brackets for the ACC tournament. By the way, at the very end, stick with us because we will let you know our selection weekend schedule what's going to happen. We'll fill you in on everything that will be going down across softball America. How about we talk about a little Mississippi statement made this past weekend, taking 2 of 3 from the Georgia Bulldogs. Aspen Wesley, friend of the pod, she came on It Just Means More Softball a while back, and she was phenomenal. Your SEC pitcher of the week after a shutout victory and then a 1 run allowed complete game victory in game 3. Aspen Wesley, when she's on, is as tough as any pitcher in the Southeastern Conference and gives Mississippi State a chance against anybody, especially with that offense that wasn't extremely explosive this weekend, but they've got the people and they've got the pop and they find ways to score runs.
Well, I watched Aspen Wesley, gosh, back when in Palm Springs, and saw her get a win over UCF there, was behind the dish, just watching her spin it. And again, the addition of Taryn Mowat-McKinney, I think, as pitching coach has really helped out that pitching staff. And again, that program reaching new heights with that pitching staff. But again, Aspen Wesley, she is so tough. And this Bulldog team, again, had some tough losses throughout the SEC play, had some tough losses, but also some pretty big wins. And I think another one that I've got circled, we're talking about the ones I have circled here, heading into the SEC tournament. But I couldn't agree more, Gray. Mississippi State, I got my eye on them heading into this conference tournament.
I've got 2 more conference champs I want to talk about. One, Northwestern holds off Indiana and gets a little help from Ohio State to win the Big Ten. And this is a story to me because we came into this year talking about Geordie Ball and Nebraska. Geordie Ball and Nebraska. Nebraska was far and away the favorite. Northwestern had lost, as I said earlier in the year, 1 million seniors. I mean, they were trying to really figure out what this team would look like. And then lo and behold, here we are, fast forward to May. Northwestern wins the Big Ten yet again.
Sorry, my light turned.
It happens.
In the middle of your day. Yeah, I mean, again, when you look at a Northwestern squad that graduated so many key seniors, it's just incredible what Kate and Carol Drohan have done for the Wildcats just in this offseason, and the addition of Ashley Miller. And again, Northwestern on top when we didn't quite know what was going to happen with the graduation of so many veterans, for them to turn it around and win the 3rd consecutive title, their 10th. Big props to Northwestern and what they've been able to do in the Big Ten. Before we've got some new entrants in the Big Ten next season.
Yeah, we'll see if they do it again next year. But the last one I wanted to talk about, look, death, taxes, Boston U winning the Patriot League. And nothing has ever been easier than the job of the Patriot League schedule makers. Let's put Boston U and Lehigh last weekend. Figure out the rest of it later. But Boston U and Lehigh last weekend of the regular season. And Boston U swept Lehigh again, just like last year. And this is just what the Terriers do. And that's a team that we've had in the top 25 for a while. And for many, many weeks this year, they just keep winning. And they just keep doing it in impressive fashion. It was not easy, as Fang Nai points out. It was not easy. All 3 games were pretty tight. But good teams know how to win. And Boston U is a very, very, very good team.
I couldn't agree with you more, Gray. And I know we've had some conversations in terms of the top 25 and BU. And I know just even a season ago, Boston just continues to be consistent year in and year out. And what a performance from Boston. We've got a lot happening in the chat too. Gasconi, I think I agree with you, Sherry. The pitching staff at Northwestern as well. Well, if you have comments, we can see your comments in the chat here. Sorry to get sidetracked, but keep them coming because Gray and I can see them. And
I've been riding with Tara and her underbears all season. That's a callback, folks. More on the Bruins later, Tara. Don't worry. But I had to let that come on the screen.
Appreciate you all. Again, we see your comments, so keep them coming. We love it.
Okay, shall we dive into some of the brackets?
Yes.
All right, let's do it. Let's start as I go to my tabs with the ACC softball tournament. The 1 seed, the Duke Blue Devils, your ACC champs. Congrats. They will take on the winner of Syracuse Boston College. Virginia Clemson, the 4-5 game. Florida State is the winner of North Carolina and Notre Dame. Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech will be the 3-6 game down at the ACC tournament, which is at Duke this year in Durham. Well, I mean, this one kind of feels wide open. I think Duke is a really good team, but the way the ACC has been this year, I wouldn't be shocked if a Syracuse maybe plucks one from them, and then all of a sudden this bracket is wide open.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to Fang Night. I'm just gonna leave this light off, everybody. Sorry. When you take a look at this bracket, that's what I had circled is Syracuse getting Duke in Game 3, which I don't know if anybody is going to the ACC tournament, but I did see that they have a tailgating package. I don't know if you've seen that, Gray, and make sure you go over and take a look at it because this tailgating package looked pretty legit. So if you are going to the ACC tournament, which I mean, they potentially could get there from the SEC tournament. That tailgating package is starting to sway me. Anyways, when you take a look at this ACC tournament, I think Syracuse that's going to be a tough game for Duke, and then you got Virginia and Clemson on that same side of the bracket. But can Florida State make a run at it and potentially be the ACC tournament champions? I think there's going to be a big test there, and then that Virginia Tech Georgia Tech game. There's going to be a lot of offense there. I think that's another one to keep an eye on. Gray, you're smirking. What's happening?
Well, because a Florida fan has entered the chat. You bloggers constantly taking digs at Florida fans, but expect us to subscribe to your paid content. Look, the digs are because y'all dig at us. It's called throwing it back and forth. It's called a conversation. That's what we're doing. Anyway.
Oh,
also,
is
the
it
Walton
Cactus
pot is
Cuddly?
free.
Oh,
I don't know.
Cuddly
I've never attempted that to cuddle a cactus. It seems like it would be not fun, but who's to say? Joy asks if there's a link to the ACC tailgate packages. Tara?
Joy, let me try and find it. I saw it on X earlier. I'll try and find it, and I'll make sure that I put it out. I'll retweet it. I'll find it, but it looks pretty incredible. So let me find it because I might be heading over there. I've never been called a blogger. Have you?
No, I'm not. I don't write anything, so I'm not a blogger.
Okay, moving forward. ACC. But again, yes, Duke is the front runner there, but keep an eye on Syracuse, and then we'll see what Florida State can do. But again, I think it's wide open, Gray. Couldn't agree with you more. Anybody can win this thing.
Look, my eye immediately goes to the potential semifinal of Florida State versus Virginia Tech. There are a lot of stakes in there. For all of those out there who are begging for anyone to knock out an Alabama or a Florida State or a Louisiana potentially from the hosting conversation, Mississippi State and Virginia Tech are probably your two best bets. And for Virginia Tech to be in that discussion, they have to win that game, and it has to be over Florida State. So if that is what goes down there, that could have a lot of stakes, not just obviously who makes the ACC tournament title game, but who could end up hosting. Fang asked, could that game be for a host spot? I'm not there yet, but ask me if we get to that point, how the landscape looks. I'll be updating my numbers each and every night. So it very much could potentially be for a host spot, but I'm not quite there yet. Anything to add to that, Tara?
Oh, I didn't know you were throwing it to me. I literally thought you were putting up a comment that you'd seen. That was
No.
No, I was going to say once we get to the bracketology, we could go over that.
Yeah.
Fang, we'll go over that once we get to that whole bracketology section later in the show.
Alrighty, well, let's go to the Big 12 tournament bracket. Good bracket. You got 7 and 10 Kansas, Houston. You got 8-9 Texas Tech, Iowa State on Wednesday, and then Thursday, Oklahoma State taking on just the dark horse maybe of the whole conference, BYU, who's just come up and grabbed a game here and there from it feels like pretty much everybody. Oklahoma taking on the winner of Kansas, Houston. Texas will have the winner of Texas Tech, Iowa State. Texas Tech is like, we want to win, but oh God, no, not another matchup with Texas. And then Baylor, UCF in the 4 versus 5. this feels fairly straightforward. I would be shocked if we don't see a semifinal Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State. Winner takes on Texas in the title game, but who knows? I mean, BYU seems like the one that could really ruin a lot of the plans that we might have for the Big 12 tournament this weekend.
Yeah, I agree with you, Gray. And that's a great graphic that, by the way, by the Big 12. It's really bright and easy to read. And
I love the
just so everybody,
colors.
me too. Sorry we don't have it up here for you guys. We'll be better next time. Nicole Mendez will be covering the Big 12 for you all. So make sure you go over and follow Nicole Mendez and the Big 12. She'll be doing a big collaboration with them at the Big 12 tournament and have potentially a tailgate, I believe, Softball America tailgate on Thursday. We're still trying to put it together, but Big 12 is going to be really, really, like Grace said, I'd be surprised if we don't see that. But, also an intriguing game is this Baylor UCF. Like, who do you got there, Gray? I don't know who's going to come out of that one as well. I think that's an intriguing kind of matchup to keep an eye on. But I'd be surprised if we don't see a Texas and Oklahoma State.
Ooh. She said, what now?
I know.
Texas and
or
Oklahoma
the Sooners
State?
going to come back and win that final conference tournament.
Oh, I
What do you
don't
got?
know. Don't ask me to pick a winner because everything I predicted about the Big 12 this year has been wrong, as everyone on Twitter. Brandon, who's your pick to win the Big 12 tournament? No, I will not be falling into the trap. I will, however, point out that Baylor's been playing pretty good softball of late. And, a lot of us kind of, I don't want to say rode off the Bears, but, they have not been in the mix to be ranked for many, many weeks. We booted them fairly quickly from the top 25. And I've been pretty impressed by how Baylor finished out the regular season. Maybe they've finally kind of figured out the right chemistry with this year's team after dealing with injuries and trying to figure out who should go where. And maybe finally they're going to start playing like the team that we thought they could be at the very beginning of the season.
Yeah, again, at the beginning of the season, it was a red hot Baylor team. And I keep going back to the beginning of the season at the Mary Nutter, just watch them really slice and dice their opponents throughout that tournament. So we could see that come back. And that's what makes these conference tournaments so fun. And we're so lucky that number one, we have these conference tournaments. Number two, that we're able to view them and have them available at our fingertips, and just can't wait for tonight to kick us off.
Fabian asks, does Tech, I assume Texas Tech, need a good run in the tournament to feel good about making the NCAA tournament? I don't know how much they get helped, honestly, by this field. Iowa State is around 90 in the RPI. That's not going to do much for the resume. And then I just don't see a world where they beat Texas in the next round. So they're not going to get super hurt unless they lose to Iowa State. But I kind of think their position right now is their position, and they just have to hope that the work that they did in the regular season is enough, because I'm not sure, unless they beat Texas, which put them in, then I'm not sure how much the way the bracket broke for the Red Raiders will truly help their postseason.
Yeah, I agree with you, Gray, unless they can come out and beat Texas, which that's why we play the game. The game doesn't know who's supposed to win. So if that does happen, it could.
Fang Nai, Iowa State also ruins seasons. Let's have Iowa State and Syracuse play a 7-game series right now for the King and Queen season ruiner title. Let's do it down. Let's look
Fang,
at
we're
the
gonna
Big
get
10.
you on here. One of these days, we're gonna get Fang on here. I'm pushing for it.
Let's go to the Big 10. This one in Iowa. Iowa did not qualify, so that's a bummer. Sorry to all the ops people for the University of Iowa who have to help manage the tournament without their team playing in it. I've talked to many teams over the years in various conferences who've dealt with that. It's the worst, but this should be a pretty good overall Big Ten tournament. Northwestern is your 1 seed. The 4 byes go to Northwestern, Nebraska, Michigan, and Rutgers, who is my dark horse, Tara, to win this tournament. Maddie Boyd, another summer leaguer, throwing really well. Morgan Smith, another summer leaguer. possibly the Big Ten Player of the Year. We'll see when that comes out, but she's been doing it at the plate and has been sharp at times in the circle. I think Rutgers could be a dark horse to win this tournament. And look, they've had some tough moments, but don't count out Penn State. A potential second round matchup of Michigan and Penn State with Bridget Nemeth against a Michigan team that's been much better over the last month could be really, really fun.
Oh, I agree. Another one that I think is wide open. Obviously, Northwestern is the favorites. I love your Rutgers call, but again, Michigan, which remember in the beginning of the season, Gray, we were really down on Michigan, and to see them come back and really make a run for it, Bonnie Thole, get in those Wolverines back back in action here. But again, another wide open tournament. I love your Rutgers call. I'm looking at this bracket, and they could potentially do it. And Ohio State, Wisconsin, they're going to get that play in to play Rutgers, so we could see Ohio State do well as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Purdue has had quietly a really solid conference slate. They've been, I think last look, they were fifth in the conference in ERA. So their pitching has been pretty solid this year. I don't know if they're going to beat Northwestern, but they took a game from them a few weekends ago. So should they beat Indiana, maybe they have a shot to beat Northwestern. Courtney Weish is always dangerous with Maryland, although the offense really hasn't helped her out. This tournament could get really interesting. And I think the team that we haven't even mentioned who might need a run the most is Nebraska. And they just need to win some games. They need to have to play Minnesota in the second round. They need to win that, and they need to beat Northwestern, and they need it to be Northwestern in the semifinals. So Nebraska really needs a good showing here this weekend, I think. Whoop.
Yes, great. Put myself on mute as I was clicking around because I know some of our lovely viewers had made a comment about my clicking around on various pages. But yes, agree. We talked about Nebraska in the beginning of the season, but the cool part is Jordy Ball will be back next season. But what they've been able to do without Jordy Ball, again, a key week for the Huskers and Ronderville and that squad. So this tournament week is really a pivotal point for some teams to really have a make or break case. And if you haven't checked it out, our own Brady Vernon, wow,
That's a tough slip. That's a tough slip.
That was. Dang it.
Love you, Brady.
Love ya. Our own Brady Vernon with the conference previews on the site. Gosh, it's just the beginning of the week and I'm already going there, Gray. And if you want to have a bit of a preview on who needs to win and why, it's all over on the site.
Let's go to Shed's tier, the final Pac-12 softball tournament, also the second Pac-12 softball tournament. You've got the 8-9 game between Oregon State and Arizona State, and then off we go. 3-6 Oregon, Utah, 2-7 Stanford, Cal. UCLA awaits the winner of the Beavs and the Sun Devils, and 4-5 it's Washington versus Arizona. Lots of questions abound. What does Stanford want to do? Brady talked about this in the conference preview. I believe it. They've got a super wrapped up. They don't need a conference tournament title. UCLA is hurt. Taylor Tinsley is hurt. They are not 100%. So that's tough. Washington just keeps not doing what they need to do to be in the hosting conversation. And I honestly don't even know if winning this tournament gets them back into that conversation. It might be too little, too late. And Oregon, another team kind of like Baylor that we just kind of, okay, they had a tough start and they just never kind of got back into the conversation for rankings. But, they've had some better moments the last few weeks. Maybe Oregon actually has the right draw to go on a little run out in Stanford.
Yeah, the last Pac-12 and the second, I love that. I keep saying that. The second Pac-12 and the last Pac-12 tournament that we're going to have. But I think who I'm most excited to watch is Cal. And Brady, I agree with Brady on this one. I think Cal is a team to keep an eye on, and the Bears are leading the pack in home runs. But what I'm looking at is, again, UCLA, how they manage the pitching. Is this one of those instances where, hey, you need more rest? Do you want to make a huge run in that tournament, or do you say, hey, we're just gonna throw who we throw and get out of here and get some rest? I don't know. Again, is Nyjah gonna throw that many ball games? Well, knowing that we're heading into the postseason, I think it's a really interesting thing to think about. But if Tinsley's back, I have no update on Tinsley. I don't know if you do, Gray, but if Tinsley is back for the Bruins, could make a solid run. But we saw Caitlin Terry take care of Arizona State this past weekend. So I don't think her innings or her arm is the issue. Because just remember, everybody, back in the day, just was one pitcher. So it is doable. It is doable to throw one arm if you are that effective. So I think it's interesting, and something I'm going to keep an eye on is the pitching in the Pac-12 tournament.
Yeah, UCLA's positioning is interesting because you have some people have them out of hosting supers, some people have them in, including me. More on that later. So UCLA does kind of need a little bit of a run, but also at the same time, if they want to make a postseason run, do they need a little I don't know. Like it's an interesting conundrum for Kelly I here this weekend.
Well, there's nothing like sleeping in your own bed, right? For or traveling or playing in your own ballpark. So having that advantage, not only in regionals and potentially super regionals, is huge. You don't have to fly across the country. You're not dealing with travel, and just staying in a routine is a big thing for athletes. So there's big implications to not only hosting, but to the ability to host a super, because that 3-game series is, number one, tough and really pivotal to be in a routine. So if you're taking a look at that supers, which we'll get into in a little bit here, I think it's really, really important to keep your foot on the gas pedal heading into postseason if that's what you need.
All right, let's go to the SEC, where we'll both be this weekend. You've got your 4 double byes: Tennessee, Arkansas, Florida, A&M. Wednesday, hello, drink some coffee and join me on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. It will be 8 LSU versus 9 Alabama. Then after that, Missouri awaits the winner of Kentucky Ole Miss in tonight's game. Georgia, Auburn in the 7-10, 6-11, Mississippi State versus South Carolina. Tennessee has been dominant this year, and outside of them, this tournament might be as wide open as it's ever been before, Tara. And Tennessee is in kind of a similar situation to Stanford, where look, they don't. I don't know if they can go much higher than where they are on the seeding. I've got them at the 2 right now. I don't know if they can get to 1. They could maybe, but it's just a tournament chock full of fascinating matchups.
Oh, absolutely. And I know Gray and you and I have discussed this at length. It it's going to be one that all eyes are on. And when you take a look at the tournament, I think Arkansas is an interesting one. Uh, After coming off a loss to Ole Miss, you and I spoke about that, and then Florida heading into the tournament. Are you going after that top 8 seed? Is that something that Tim Wilton is taking a look at? Texas A&M, huge implications at sitting at 16 in the RPI. Making a good run in the SEC tournament really boosts your stock with the committee, because I don't know about you, Gray, but I do think these games at the end are the ones that committee members actually start to watch a little bit more. I don't know that that's true, but it would be common sense.
Yeah, look, and I'll tell you this: there are 2 teams that got gold, RPI gold, and that's Alabama and Auburn. They get a shot at LSU and Georgia, who are the 8 and 7 seeds respectively, and who are top 10 RPI possible wins. So huge for those 2 teams. Opportunity ready, cash in. This is your chance, and you don't have to do it with a team that's got a little bit more rest than you, that has a double bye. I think it's just a big opportunity for both of those squads. Texas A&M on the flip side, their best case is just outside the top 20 of the RPI, Mississippi State. So A&M's got to be thinking, shoot, like how did we not get in the position where maybe LSU faces us if they win in the round before, and we can just grab a top 10 RPI win. Bracketing is so weird, and standings can shift every single day. All day on Sunday, we thought Alabama was going to play Mississippi State, and then that is not what happened. So it's going to be a tournament that is full of plot twists, full of fun, and probably a shocker or two, I think, as we typically see in this tournament.
Uh, and it's all starts tonight, Gray. Like that's the best part about it. It all starts tonight. So the mayhem, which has already ensued, well into the 7th of May. We're gonna see a lot of that as it starts tonight. But again, so many implications here in terms of hosting, in terms of seeding, in terms of really getting those top 10 wins. And you and I have spoken about this. It's a pivotal and key point for some of these teams. So I can't wait for us to see what unfolds here in the SEC tournament, and excited that I get to be at my first SEC tournament.
And we get to see each other. And by the way, Brandon puts this comment: LSU desperately needs some momentum in the SEC tourney, or I fear an early postseason exit. I sent a little nugget to our friend Amanda Scarborough, who will be on the call tonight. Amanda, Kevin Brown, Alyssa Lang on SEC Network. Here is said nugget: LSU has not beaten a team better than the 12 seed at the SEC tournament since 2017. They won 2 games, 2018, 19, 21, 22, 23 in the SEC tournament. 1 win against a 13, 1 win against a 12. So LSU will take on 9 seed Alabama on Wednesday. We will be like wrapping up the broadcast this time tomorrow. So join us. LSU trying to turn the tide a little bit from these last few SEC tournament trips.
Wow, great. That is such an interesting stat. And again, all eyes on the Tigers and this first round game. Can Kayla Beaver really get in that circle and shut down the LSU offense? I think she can, but it's going to be huge for LSU to, again, I agree with you, Brandon, to get some momentum heading into postseason play. They're safe in the RPI. We'll be able to host a super. But again, I agree with you, Gray, and I agree with you, Brandon. Really, really important for the Tigers to get some momentum here.
All right, real quick, I'm going to make the call now. Put in your top 25 Q&A questions. We're not going to do a ton of them, but go ahead and throw those in the chat. So we'll dive into that in just a second. Last tournament bracket we're going to look at, Tara, the AAC. This is the one that you said you are most intrigued by. So I'll toss it to you. Why?
Gosh, just FAU and Charlotte sharing a share of the tournament title there. They won't play until Friday. So loads of games will be happening until then. Friday, you've got South Florida in there, Tulsa, Wichita State. And I really, Gray, I believe it's anybody's game between those. And again, a Charlotte team was hot in the beginning. Remember that big win over Florida State, and had a little bit of a lull. And then for Ashley Chastain to get that team to come back and be co-champions of the conference, really, really impressive. And can't say enough about Jordan Clark down at FAU and just her second season at Florida Atlantic, getting a share of the title. Incredible coaching job. I know she went into the portal and has really revamped FAU, but another tournament that I was actually thinking about flying out to Wichita to watch, because I do think that one's going to be a good one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I've been very impressed by Charlotte, new to the top 25. Again, get your questions in. Tulsa has had good moments, but really struggled this past weekend to wrap up the regular season. Wichita State's always dangerous. South Florida, they've beaten Florida this year, so they can do anything. And don't forget about UAB. Our friends up in Birmingham with AJ Doherty, that's a team that's had some nice moments as well as the regular season has gone on. Bella Wiggins has been impressive. Hannah Dorsett has been really solid as a freshman. If they can find the pitching this weekend, they can make a run in the AAC tournament. Don't forget about the Blazers.
Yeah, and we're not even gonna get into the Sun Belt here either. But another one to keep an eye on, the Sun Belt and Louisiana, and what Jerry Glasgow has done with that squad this season. And then a team that's got Texas State and Jessica Mullins, who's thrown their most innings in the NCAA and just been stellar for the Bobcats. So again, keep an eye on that. Again, it's all over on the site, softballamerica.com. Brady's got you covered.
All right, are you ready? Should we do it? Okay, top 25 Q&A. Ask us your questions about the top 25. Ask us anything. It's out. Tara, I'm going to ask you a question. 1 through 4. Texas, Tennessee, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. Why that order?
Whoa, gosh, that's a great question. Obviously, you here's the funny thing about this top four. Oklahoma State has beaten both Texas and Oklahoma. So you take a look at this poll and you say, okay, Texas has won the Big 12, but Oklahoma State has beat both Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. But Texas, when you take a look at their 45-6 record, winning the Big 12 and what they've done this far, I think they're still the number one team in the country. And then Tennessee at 40-9, 3-0 last week. I think Tennessee, the Vols are going to be really, really tough this year in the postseason because they've got two aces in the circle. That's like 1A, 1B, and you can choose who you want, Pickens, Gottschall in the circle. And then Oklahoma State at number 3 with that big win over Oklahoma. So in terms of that top 4, hopefully that answers your question, Gray. But I do think Texas is still the number 1 team in the country. This tournament this week is going to be interesting to see if they can hold that spot or if they're going to fall there. But again, Tennessee winning the SEC outright in its fashion. I think they're the number 2 team in the country right now, just with Oklahoma State right behind them and Oklahoma.
Fang asks,
Your thoughts?
Texas A&M. Oh, I agree with everything that you said. I think Fang also points out, why is Oklahoma State still down? It's because they have some really, really bad losses resume wise, because they have some things that dinged them and made it harder for them to climb up because of how far they went down. That's why. Fang, A&M ahead of Arkansas. A&M at 10, Arkansas at 11. We've had A&M pretty high. Last week they were number 4. Getting swept against Florida. Getting swept is never good. Okay, never good. You don't want to lose all 3 games in a weekend. But getting swept at Florida is not the most damaging sweep in the world, I would say. So I felt like the drop from 4 to 10 was fair.
Yep.
Arkansas losing a home series out of nowhere to Ole Miss. I actually, in my ballot, had them a little bit lower. I was surprised the math worked out to where they were 11. But I felt like A&M at 10 ahead of Arkansas made sense. That was never really one where I figured I would flip them.
Yeah, I agree with you. Great, kind of same deal there. That loss to Ole Miss and Texas A&M, obviously losing 3 in a row, getting swept, but on the road. And again, you have to remember we had them at 4 in our poll. So just a reminder to everybody as well, when you're making your comments, totally great with your comments. Just make sure you're making them on our poll, right? So you can't just take somebody else's poll and where a team was ranked and make a comment about how they're ranked in our poll. Does that make sense?
Yes, I hope certain people are listening. Here's one. I feel like Miami has been severely underrated despite almost knocking off OU and having the number 2 all-time home run hitter. I would like to point out that we do have Miami in our poll, not completely accurate all the way around. But yeah, I think that Miami has been, look, they just keep winning. And something that we talked about, good teams know how to win. And the MAC is, it is not the toughest conference by any stretch, but there are good teams there who have tripped up other good teams in the past. And, they took the one loss to Central Michigan, who almost, by the way, beat Arizona way back in February in Tucson. But Miami, they just keep winning. And if their pitching was a little bit more consistent, I would be ready as all heck to throw them in the top 15.
Yeah, I agree with you, Gray. I mean, we all saw Miami, Ohio, and what they can do. When you say strength of schedule, like, listen, we all watched them play Oklahoma, and you can't deny that. The argument that those home runs are hit in a lesser conference. Yes, maybe the pitching isn't as great, but they're still doing it off of Oklahoma. Same kind of deal here, and I just can't say enough about Miami, Ohio, and a team I've got circled heading into postseason because again, I agree. I can't remember who was on this thread or this chat. I wouldn't want them in a regional
No.
if that I was in either. That's dangerous. That's going to be dangerous.
There was a hot second when a lot of the bracketologists out there were predicting Miami to go to Tennessee, and I was just like, let's go. Fire me up. I'm in. I want to see Tennessee pitching against the Miami offense. I don't know if Miami's pitching could slow down the Lady Vols, but like I'm in on that. And I don't think that's going to happen, but wherever Miami goes, home fans, be nervous. I'm telling you right now, be nervous.
Yeah, no, I that's the one team I think on the bracket where I'm watching to see where they're going, because that could be what was a ruiner, a season ruiner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're a different kind of season ruiner though. Here's one from Cuddly Cactus. Lots of teams fans complain about your polls and analysis, but there's some special vitriol shown for Florida. It's always condescending. Just take accountability. Not you, Tara. You're great, which I agree with. Tara, you are amazing. So here's the thing. It seems like the Florida fans are the ones with the most vitriol for us in the comments. And what's so funny to me is the Florida fans always seem to cite the other polls when complaining about our poll. Every single Florida comment I saw this week was, why didn't we move? You did. You were 9 in the ESPN poll, not in our poll. Florida moved up 3 spots this week. So the thing that I always ask of people is, if you're going to make a complaint, please do so with accurate facts and analysis. We will continue to back up our claims. I think that Florida losing to Missouri a couple weeks ago is why I've got them at number 9. Also, side note, Florida fans, the other thing that I saw in the comments, these do not determine the seeds at all. So as much as I love this top 25 and I enjoy voting in it, that's not taken into account by the committee. So it doesn't tarnish at all your possibility of hosting a super regional. And finally, I would again like to point out that it's not like we hate Florida. Let's text Coach Walton right now and ask how his day is going. Like, things are good with the University of Florida. There's nothing animus there. I helped Francesca Anea pick out something for her husband. I mean, like, we're all friends.
Great. What are you talking about? We hate everybody. We
I'm
hate all
sorry.
teams.
You're right.
Just say that you hate all teams. That's
I hate
it.
everyone. I hate everyone and everything.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. We're all good. Like,
but here's the one thing I will ask about Florida.
You're still going on about it.
No, because I want to hear your take on Florida versus Missouri on 9 versus 8, because I do think Brady made an excellent point on Twitter about how really the only difference in their conference slate is Florida did not play Tennessee, Missouri did, and got swept by Tennessee. And otherwise, there was a lot of similarities between the schedule.
Yeah, I mean, it's one spot. It's 8 and 9, so I think it can go hand in hand. Again, I've watched a lot of Florida games, and I've been told that I hate Florida by people in the Florida organization. And I would say, again, Florida is playing really, really, really good softball. And Chelsea Dobbins, the addition of Chelsea Dobbins as pitching coach, I think there was a lot of question marks. People didn't know how that was going to go. I can't say enough about what Coach Dobbins has done with that young pitching staff and her ability to get them ready to go week in and week out. And the Gators have played midweek games, so it's not like it's been an easy slate either. So for me, I think 8 and 9 and a poll. Again, it doesn't really matter in the seeding, but it can go hand in hand either way. But really, really impressed with Florida and what they've done throughout this year and through the SEC.
Like I said earlier, this is a team that I think can win a national championship. And I'm not just saying that. I think that this week showed if Keegan Rothrock can continue to be solid and give her offense time to put up the runs, they can win a title. I'm not even kidding about that. But I talked about the seeding, Tara, because it's time for a little bracketology comparison. Brady's bracket is out, so we're going to go seed line by seed line. So I'm going to read you what Brady has versus what I have. Here's the caveat to our process. Brady predicts a little bit more out. Now, I don't think he predicts the conference tournament, so I think they're pretty much as equal as they'll have been. But all throughout the year, Brady's predicting who will win the regular season title and all that fun stuff. So we're both going off of what we have, off of the evidence that exists. Here we go.
Yeah, and those of you that are Softball America subscribers, you can follow along. You just gotta go on over to the site, and you can see the bracket on the site too.
So, number 1 overall seed, we both have Texas. Number 2 overall seed, we both have Tennessee. Number 3 overall seed, we both have Oklahoma. Number 4 overall seed, I have Oklahoma State. Brady has LSU. Number 5, Brady has Oklahoma State. I have Stanford. 6, Brady has Stanford. I have Georgia. 7, Brady has Georgia. I have LSU. 8, Brady has Florida. I have UCLA. 9, Brady has UCLA.
Wait, let's stop there to the top 8. Let's stop there first because
Okay,
I think we need to go over this.
Let's go to the
There's
top
a lot
8.
of differences there because I've been trying to write down yours, and I'm sure that the fans and listeners are doing the same thing. So let's go over the top 8 right now. So
Okay.
top 3 are the same, right?
Exact same.
Okay. Then we get to LSU. Brady has LSU at 4, and you have
Oklahoma State.
why Oklahoma State there instead of LSU? And are you the committee? Are you really thinking about how the committee has done this in the past?
Yes, I am.
Tell me why you're dropping LSU from that 4 spot and Brady is keeping them there.
So, do you want me to start with LSU or with Oklahoma State?
Whatever you feel better about.
All right, let's go with. We'll start with LSU. So I think that one of the things that helps Oklahoma State versus LSU in this conversation, LSU 11-11 against the RPI top 25. You got a lot of teams who have more wins than that. Stanford, Georgia does. Oklahoma State does not. But Oklahoma State has more RPI top 10 wins than LSU. LSU's got a lot of top 50 wins. They do have a 7-7 true road record, which is something that the committee has specifically on the team sheet. Good SOS, non-con SOS, not quite as high as it has been in some years. So that tells you that the SEC schedule is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. And one of the things that the committee chairperson has talked about is the KPI is going to be used as a reference, but it's going to be used as, all right, if this team is here, like LSU is 10, why is their RPI at 3 and where's the disparity there? So that tells me they're going to probably take a pretty deep look into this LSU profile. And I think what they're going to see is a team that has struggled down the stretch a little bit, that hasn't taken very many bad losses, but hasn't necessarily won a ton of series. And Georgia kind of in the same boat. But what Oklahoma State's got going for them is they have the 2 best series wins of anyone in America. They beat 2 out of 3 against Texas. They took 2 out of 3 at Oklahoma. And I think one of the things that we've known for a long time is that the committee really puts an extra emphasis on the high quality wins. And it's hard to find 2 better, or I guess 4 better wins than what Oklahoma State has against Texas and Oklahoma. So that's why I've got them at 4. I don't think that, I think if LSU went on a run this week, probably going to pass Oklahoma State for overall body of work, but I just think the highest of the high end for Oklahoma State will be enough to get them past a little bit of a hodgepodge after those initial 3.
Well, and I think that's really interesting. And those of you that are tuning in right now live, if you could comment on who you have as your 4 seed, that would be great. Wherever you are, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Twitter, if you're on Instagram, I think we're on Instagram now. Make a comment on who would your 4 seed be. Is it Oklahoma State? Is it LSU? Or would you have someone else in that 4 spot if you were the selection committee? So go ahead and make that comment on who you would have at the 4 seed. So that's 4. And now we're going to go to 5, right, Gray? So Brady has Oklahoma State in that 5. And who do you have in your 5 spot?
I have Stanford.
So Stanford hops LSU here too. So give me the background as to why Stanford is going to be in that 5 spot rather than LSU.
This is my eye test pick. The committee tells us all the time that a lot of criteria goes in. In 2019, the committee told us that they can't use the eye test. That was a written comment from the chairperson. Last year, they talked about head-to-head. They talked about eye test. And I think that Stanford being ahead of LSU and Georgia would be a good way to utilize that eye test. I think LSU's profile and Georgia's profile are overall better than Stanford's. But I think Stanford has just looked the part a little bit more, especially in recent weeks. Najee Kennedy is the best pitcher in America. It's not close. I think that this is a good spot to bump Stanford. So in my initial breakdown, I had Georgia and LSU ahead of Stanford, and then I utilized this as the, okay, this is where I test. This is where quote unquote recent finish, even though I don't believe that the committee actually cares about bad recent finishes because we have no proof of that. This is where that could come into play a little absentmindedly, and I bumped Stanford up to 5.
All right. So we've got a little bit of, disagreement here on this top 8 already, which I think there's actually valid points and arguments on both sides. So then Brady has Stanford at 6, and you've got who at 6, Gray?
I've got Georgia.
So Georgia over LSU still.
Yeah, 14 top 25 wins is hard to combat. They've got 5 top 10 wins. They've got 20 against the top 50. They've hit all kind of the proper benchmarks. 5 top 10 is big. Over double-digit top 25 is big. 20 top 50 is huge. They've beaten Tennessee. They've beaten UCLA. They've beaten Oklahoma State. They've beaten Florida. They took 2 out of 3 against Missouri. Strength of schedule is number 2. I think Georgia is safe as a Supers host, and I think their profile is better than LSU's. So as long as LSU is safe as a Supers host, in my eyes, I think that means Georgia is as well.
Wow. Well, I mean, I think your top 8 are pretty interchangeable, other than the last one, which you've got UCLA right over Florida.
Correct.
So why UCLA over Florida here? Because Brady's got Florida at 8 and UCLA at 9, so you guys are pretty close here. But why do you think UCLA gets that Supers over Florida?
Right now, this is purely Florida getting subtracted a little bit for the non-conference strength of schedule. 79. It's gone up. It was in the triple digits for a while, and so I think there's a possibility that this could almost become a moot point. But I stuck with it just a little bit longer just because UCLA's strength of schedule numbers are so much stronger than Florida's. But Florida right now is rocking and rolling with the quality wins. They've got 6 in the top 10. It's going to be real hard to keep them out of hosting a super regional with that many top 10 wins. 14 top 25 compared to UCLA's 9. That's a fairly significant difference. 21 top 50 versus 17 for the Bruins. UCLA's got a worse bad loss than Florida does. UCLA, though, has that sweep of Stanford to hang their hat on. They've got to win at a neutral site over Tennessee. They've got to win at a neutral site over Florida State. Florida's best wins, 2 against LSU, 2 against Georgia. They've got to win over UCLA. So, again, I typically don't factor in head-to-head until the very last one because the committee uses it as a tiebreaker scenario when things are close. And this could be one where it's close. But I just strength of schedule scared me a little bit. And so I gave UCLA the nod right here. I think, though, that at the very end of the day, it probably will end up that Florida has a better resume. But just the way the numbers looked when I made this list, I gave the edge to UCLA for now. Florida wins 1 game in the SEC tournament. They're probably moving right back in there.
So this circles back to what we were talking about earlier, how important it is for Florida to win a game in this SEC tournament. Is it a game? Is it important for UCLA to win a few games in the Pac-12 tournament? So this is why it is important to go into these tournaments because of these rankings, the ranking potential. So let's go through the last 8 here if we've got time. I know we're over time, but hey, why not? We can just hang out here. Let's keep it rolling. Let's go through your numbers. 9. We went through 9, so let's do 10 through 16.
Yeah, real quick a recap. I've got Florida at 9. Brady's got UCLA at 9. Here we go. We both have Duke at 10, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that. 11 for Brady is Arkansas. 11 for Gray is Arkansas. 12, Brady's got Missouri. I've got Missouri. Look at this. 13, Brady has Alabama. I have Alabama at 14. I beg your pardon. At 13, I have Texas A&M. At 14, I have Alabama. Brady has Florida State. At 15, we both have Louisiana. And at 16, I've got Florida State. Brady has Texas A&M, which is something that we will probably discuss as well. So, Tara, anything that you want to ask me about that list?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think obviously you agree on a few of those. I think the ones I do want to talk about are the ones that you don't agree on, and that would be obviously Alabama and Texas A&M. Brady has Texas A&M at 16, and you have them at 14. So you guys have
13.
flipped. Oh, at 13.
Yes.
You guys have flipped there. And why do you have the Aggies up a little bit higher than Brady does?
So A&M's a hard one. A&M's a hard one. They've got a lot of top 50 wins. They've hit that 20. 20 is oftentimes a successful benchmark. But why did the committee crush teams last year? Teams like Stanford, teams like Northwestern, because they didn't have any RPI top 10 wins. Zero. Well, A&M currently is 0-3 against the RPI top 10, 7-9 against the RPI top 25. That is 3 fewer RPI top 25 wins than Alabama has, and that is including A&M winning 2 games at Alabama. So I kept them up a little bit because of the 20 RPI top 50 wins, which is significantly more than Alabama. But you look at the top 10 wins that are lacking, the top 25 wins that are lacking, and a non-conference strength of schedule that has plummeted. I don't know what happened. A&M was in the 80s, and it's like they had an agreement with Florida and switched. So now Florida's in the 70s, 80s. A&M's currently sits at 120. That is something that the committee can look at and say, sticking point, especially considering that A&M did not play the toughest SEC slate, as noted by their 35th strength of schedule. If the SEC schedule were a little bit harder, that'd be in the 20s or teens, but it's not. It's in the 30s. So I think A&M is safe to host a regional. I think they're going to host a regional, but I think they're a lot closer to getting bumped out of this than anyone thought they were until about 2 days ago. And it's very important that they don't mess around and go one and done in the SEC tournament.
But you have them, I mean, Brady has them at 16, and again, I think that's what I talked to Brady about is it's gonna be really pivotal in the SEC tournament for the Aggies to get a few wins here. And then I wanna talk about Florida State, Gray, and where you've got Florida State in terms of the top 16.
Yeah, I've got them at 16. There's nothing here. I mean, what am I supposed to look at on this profile? I think Florida State's a good team. There's nothing here. 2 top 10 wins. Good. 3 top 25 wins. Okay, wait, hold on. Rewind. Just 3? But that's all Florida State has on this sheet. Less than A&M. Same number as Texas State. They've got 8 less RPI top 25 wins than Mississippi State, who I've got off the board. There's just not a ton here. And 50 top 50 win, or I'm sorry, that's wrong. 9 top 50 wins for Florida State. That's it. They've got the bad losses. Jacksonville, FGCU, the Syracuse losses aren't good for the profile. They've won some games. You know, they took one against Duke. They beat Florida at Florida. They beat Stanford and Clearwater. And then their 4th best win this year is Charlotte back on opening weekend. And their 5th best win is Texas Tech back on opening weekend. The metrics like them, good non-con SOS, but in terms of actual meat on the bones of this profile, there's just not a lot there. So I think Florida State is the one that is most likely to drop out of the 16. And I think a team like Virginia Tech or Mississippi State are just waiting, hoping for them to lose or a chance to beat them. And if that happens, then we could have a discussion about, okay, maybe Florida State drops out. But folks, I hate to tell you, and I think Florida State's a good team, but metrically, this is the team that is most likely, even more so, I think, maybe than Louisiana, to drop out of the hosting discussion based off of what happens this weekend.
Well, it's so interesting. And what I found really interesting is Brady has put the number of top 10 RPI wins and has listed them out over on the site. And you're right, Texas A&M and Duke has zero top 10 RPI wins.
That's why I have Duke out of the Supers conversation. That's why Stanford and Northwestern were kept out last year. I mean, we have precedent for that.
And I think that's really, and then Virginia Tech has 1. And then you take a look at Alabama and Florida State and Louisiana all with 2. So again, that was an emphasis last year. So we're going to keep an eye on this and we'll have that updated. And Brady will make sure that we're updating these brackets for you as as they change and we go forward into the end of the week. Because whoa, it's a lot of implications. Now I'm like, whew, that's a lot.
I mean, shoot, I'm gonna be updating it every night. Like, here we go. I will point out to the Louisiana point. The reason I sorted it Alabama, Louisiana, Florida State. I think those three have done everything that they can to not host a regional the last few weeks. So then we have to look at what we know, right? And they've all got equal number of top 10 wins. So, okay. Alabama's got more top 25, followed by Louisiana, followed by Florida State. Same with the top 50 in that order. Strength of schedule metrics aren't a huge difference really across the board. Louisiana's got that great non-con SOS, but overall SOS is kind of blah. Florida State, kind of the opposite. Alabama, kind of somewhere in the middle. So I think just the sheer number of quality wins was why I ordered those teams in 14, 15, and 16.
Well, this is exciting, and I think what is gonna be even more fun is when Gray and I, after the selection show next Monday, we're gonna take a look at what we spoke about today and see how close we are, uh, when we've got Selection Sunday just coming up here, and then we'll have a special show on Monday. Gray and I, Sydney Supley and Nicole Mendez will taking care of you all during the selection show on Sunday night, so we'll have all that coverage for you, and again, if you want us to cover anything else or have any questions, you can always just let us know. The chat is open.
Always. So, what else is on SA right now, Tara? We've got conference tournament previews. We've got bracketology. I'm sure other things will be coming as well. But what's on SA right now, partner?
Yep, we've got obviously the top 25 poll that we just released that we went over, and then conference awards list. So every conference, every award, which is really, really cool to just be able to highlight every conference player and their awards. And again, conference tournament previews are up on the site, and then we'll have coverage, like we said, from across the country. Nicole Mendez, again, will be with the Big 12. And Rain Wilson will be at the ACC. Gray, myself, and Tom will be at the SEC. And who knows? I might pop over to another tournament. Not quite sure what or when that is going to be, but keep an eye out. You never know where I'm going to land.
You will. If I've known you, and I feel like I have for all these years, Tara, you're gonna pop. You're gonna wind up at some other tournament randomly. You might sleepwalk there. Who's to say? But you might just show up.
I just need a driver. I spoke and we spoke about this earlier. I think my dad is volunteered to become a driver to just I need a driver to get me out to these different tournaments because there's just so much great softball and it's just fun to be a part of it. And we're just so lucky to do what we do. And Gray, can't thank you enough for always holding it together for us and putting together our shows and in charge of our podcast network. So that'll be ready for everybody as well. You'll be able to hear insight from across the country from all of our podcasts, and obviously you'll be able to hear Gray on the radio this week with Alabama.
Wake up with us tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Santa's coming to town. Join us on CTSN for Alabama and LSU. That's an elf quote in May. You're welcome.
Oh, you got me.
Oh man, thank you
Wonderful.
everyone for tuning in. Thank you for popping in the chat, even the ones who don't like me very much. We're grateful for you for tuning in and subscribing. We've hit 1,000. That happened, and we're so grateful to all of you for tuning in and for joining the conversation. It's very important that the conversation thrives. That's all that we want, right? I mean, we want the sport to grow, and part of that is having the conversations. And I think that we had plenty of those here today, my friend.
Absolutely. And now that we've hit 100, one of you lucky subscribers is going to get an NIL shirt of your choice. So we're going to do a raffle and we'll let you know next Monday who that is. You'll be able to choose a shirt from your favorite team, favorite player from the NIL collective, and we'll be sending that over to you for now. And then stay tuned because there's going to be some Softball America merch as we head to the Women's College World Series. But we'll keep you updated on that. It's pretty cool. Can't wait for you all to see it. I'm so excited about this, and I've just been bottling it all up because I couldn't release it, but it's going to happen. So we'll have some merch at the Women's College World Series.
I need more clothes, so I'm down. Give me look.
Even a SA pin. I'm going to get you a lapel pin.
Okay. Bet.
Yeah.
I'll put it on my blazer. It'll be great. Lord knows I have enough of those. All right. That's Tara Henry. I'm Gray Robertson. Thank you so much for joining us here on Good Morning Softball America. Happy conference tournament week. The next time we will be speaking to all of you, it will be to react to an NCAA tournament bracket. Batten down the hatches. Postseason is here. We'll see you next time, everybody.